After 7 years, Frozen 2 is about to hit theaters, so let's talk about it. When Arendelle's very existence is threatened, Elsa, Anna, Kristoff, Olaf, and Sven embark on a journey to try and save their kingdom while discovering the origin of Elsa's powers. So earlier today, I got to see Frozen 2. I actually took my daughter out of school. We went to go see it together, which is a very fun way to see this movie. But before I give you my take on it, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your anticipation for the film. If you're watching this in the future, tell me what did you think about the film. With that said, let's get started talking about the good. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is that this film felt like it had a much more focused story than the first film. In the original, there's kind of a lot of different moving pieces. The objective, the villain seemed to shift all throughout the entire film. Here, it's a lot more clear what they're trying to save, as well as what they're trying to discover. There's certain mysteries established early inside of the film, and we're waiting to get answers for those questions that kind of builds the tension as we go on this adventure. Likewise, there's the urgency created by Arendelle being in danger, and we know what we're going towards the entire time, and I felt that fit this series of films, this franchise, better than what they did in the first film. Along those same lines, the movie digs deep into the mythology of magic in this world, the kingdom of Arendelle, the parents of the two sisters, and it just makes the world seem a lot bigger and more magical in its own way. It's not just that Elsa has some powers and these trolls kind of have some powers, but you feel this world that has all sorts of exciting things inside of it. Another thing this movie I think did better than the first film was balancing the characters and the amount of screen time that each of them has. Since we don't have to introduce all of these characters like we did before, they're all established and you get a little bit of an arc or a purpose for each of the characters inside of the film. And so as you go through it, they all are kind of adding along the way. Each of them kind of has the way that they're bringing levity to it, the way that they're bringing emotion into the mix. And so because it felt more balanced. In the first film, I felt like they were kind of like hopping around between characters and bringing new people in all throughout the whole thing. Certain people would disappear for long periods of time. Elsa felt very distant in the first film, very cold to the audience. Here, all of them get a character arc. All of them, you feel like you spend a lot of time with them and get to know them better throughout the adventure inside of the story. And a big part of that is simply because Anna and Elsa get to spend so much of the movie together. Once again, in the original film, Elsa's locked in a room and then she runs off, and the two of them are only kind of joined together back at the end of the film. Here, they're buddies throughout the film, and you're seeing the tension and the dynamic between them, and that's where we really grow and start to understand people better and how they relate to the people that they love the most, and you see that all throughout this film. Likewise, the way it plays out with the Anna and Kristoff relationship, Olaf's relationship with everybody, just nice exploration of the characters. Speaking of Olaf, they give him an interesting little journey that he's on inside of it with the way he's pondering reality that leads to all kinds of very funny Olaf moments, especially as he's like talking to kids and things like that. I mentioned earlier that the movie dives into the origins of the magic and digs into that mythology, and because of that, it kind of really doubles down on the fantasy aspects of the series, and I think that worked really nicely for it. There's some great touches with the way that Elsa interacts with some of the different forces at certain times inside of it. She gets her own little animal sidekick, actually kind of gets a couple of different animal sidekicks throughout the film. Both of them are nice little touches for her character, and you see that warmer side to her because of that. And just in general, the movie does a really good job of setting a tone throughout the entire film that has this sense of intrigue and mystery that you're just invested in on this adventure. You want to hear the answers to certain questions for our characters, to discover things. You feel all of the things you're supposed to feel. It makes the story seem grander than the first film, and in certain ways can make the conclusion, the third act, have some great satisfaction as those kind of power moments happen inside of it. From there, let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. The big thing that comes to mind here is the music. It's, for me personally, I tend to take a little while to warm up to the songs inside of musicals. So the first time I watched Frozen, I didn't immediately connect with the songs, and on listening to them repeat, I connected with them a little bit more. So it's kind of tricky for me to evaluate how good the music was. As you were going through it, you could tell when they were trying to do the equivalent songs to certain ones, like this is the new Let It Go, and this is the new Anna song, establishing what she's thinking about right now that'll be her character arc throughout the entire film. And not that they were bad, they just didn't immediately seem as memorable and iconic as, say, Let It Go was. Now, the big standout here was actually Kristoff's song. I don't remember the name of it, but they do something really funny with it. And as soon as the song starts, you'll know what I'm talking about. It just kind of goes off in this other direction that is a nice little touch, and a song that's probably the one that was the most immediately memorable watching the film because it is so different and strange. So I put this in the mix because I don't know what's gonna happen as soon as I start listening to the album on repeat with my daughter in every car ride that we have for the next 3 years. I might warm up to them. My first impression was they're not as strong as the songs of the original film. From there, let's move on to the bad. Probably my biggest frustration with the film is that I didn't feel like the third act was as big and epic as the build-up to it. You have this story that has certain epic things about the nature of it, and you're exploring mythology, but they didn't quite come up with a third act climax battle that matched all the tension that they built throughout the entire film. You're kind of going through it and you go, oh, I guess that's all that's about to happen. And then a couple more things do happen. You're like, oh, that was really quick too. The specific third act just is very short inside of this film. It just kind of reveals, oh, that's what needs to happen. This is how this is going to play out. And then it just does. It lacked the kind of struggle in the moment that you need to have the biggest payoff. Like, I felt the right emotions, but I kept thinking, this should be so much more powerful. This could be better. And it almost felt like they spent all their time tweaking and adjusting the first two acts, and then they just kind of had to go with it for the final act. Like, that one needed a couple more passes just to make it as powerful as so much of the rest of the film was. It also seemed to me like they were trying so hard to make the story bigger and explain everything and have all the emotions that you could have, that they added a couple extra things in there that are supposed to be in big epic stories like this, that because they weren't set up the way everything else was, just kind of felt tacked on. Even the way it kind of tries to explore some of the stuff with the parents and their death, it just felt like they were trying to add something extra in to give it extra punch, a little bit more oomph, a couple more ties back to what we knew before, and they just didn't pay off the way they were supposed to. Likewise, some of that stuff in that third act that felt kind of rushed to me, they didn't build up to some of the things that happened, and then they rushed through the third act, so they didn't hit the way that they're supposed to. They happened, and you kind of felt a little something, but not what you were supposed to. The things that were set up really nicely in Act 1 and Act 2 did have that emotional payoff, and then there's all these extra ones that just kind of were there. And then finally, over the credits, they do kind of pop versions of some of the songs from the movie. They're pretty distracting, the versions they went with. Like, as soon as it started, it's like, whoa, this isn't bad music, it's just very weird to follow up the movie that I just saw. Real quick before I give you my final score on this one, tell me what you thought down below in the comment section, or tell me your anticipation. Are you excited for this one? Are you not excited for it? I'd love to hear your take on it. Also, after this video is done, check out this playlist up above. It's got my rankings of a bunch of big, iconic, classic animated franchises. As soon as this movie's released to the public, I will be updating my ranking of the current Disney films, the current revival era of Disney animated films. With a more focused story and extra attention to the characters, Frozen 2 is a worthy follow-up to the original film that should be able to hit just the right notes to warm even the coldest of hearts. It's a B+ overall. It's an 8 out of 10 on the entertainment scale, and if you enjoyed the first Frozen, you gotta go see Frozen 2. If you want to hear my take on the first Frozen, check out that playlist right over there. It's got a ranking where I talk all about it and all the other current Disney animated films. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.